It's graduation day at your magic school. You're excited to learn what magic type you inherit at the end of your schooling. You step up to place your hand on the pedestal to find out. Turns out you have an ancient forbidden magic type, and you have to run now. It's graduation day at your magic school. You're excited to learn what magic type you inherit at the end of your schooling. You step up to place your hand on the pedestal to find out. Turns out you have an ancient forbidden magic type, and you have to run now. Hashtag the thread, threadstalk, Minecraft parkour, Reddit stories, HalfIP, writing prompts, magic. And now, let us welcome our graduating class. The words of Headmaster Trunkart echoed through the hall, and were met by a round of joyous applause and cheering from the sitting students, just finishing up their noontide meal. The light shimmered in above through the glass walls and vaulted ceiling, revealing a school of fish flitting by and the lazy loop of one of the many seals that liked to laze about the Chroma Academy grounds. The academy was located just a few dozen miles from Dublin, beneath the waves of the Atlantic, just off the coast. It was exquisite, with the light from the noonday sun often providing brilliant, scintillating color patterns within the classrooms and halls, as was fitting for a magical academy so focused on the colors of magic and those who wielded them. Still, you'd felt some degree of claustrophobia and apprehension when you first came, years ago, and resolved during your holidays at home since then to improve your swimming ability just in case the worst should happen. Still, Chroma Academy had not had a breach in decades, if not centuries, but the amount of water that tended to drip down into the layers of the catacombs you had your alchemy classes in was not that reassuring. Now, though, 8 years later, and ready to face the world at large, the water around you feels like a good friend. One of your staunch mates, Cassian, still maintained ardently that he'd had a brief but passionate affair with a Selkie while you were all on holiday, and he was stuck at the academy over Christmas. But thus far, he'd never been able to give any definitive proof to the boast. Still, your eyes follow the seals, wondering if you might catch one of them becoming a beautiful, and according to Cassian, buxom woman, before the creatures darted out of sight. The first to approach the headmaster and the pedestal he stood proudly beside was a big, brutish lout from one of the other houses, Othian of House Fresnel. He was renowned as a fairly thick, if straightforward mage, and routinely scored top points in physical trials. He had tried, without much luck, to try and get a sporting club of some kind established, akin to what some of the other magical universities supported. But the underwater and relatively close to civilization nature of the Chroma Academy meant that neither students nor faculty were very enthused to try and make it a reality. The muscle-bound young man placed his hands flat upon the pedestal and intoned his name clearly, echoing in the crystalline hall and above the quiet murmur of those who had not fallen fully silent. The voice seemed to echo and bounce for a moment before there was the sound of unfurling cloth. From nothing, banners began to drop, from the back of the hall to the front, huge and crimson, the sign that he was a bona fide red mage. This came as little shock to you, nor anyone else you knew, but there was a round of enthusiastic applause anyways. Red mages were renowned for their physical prowess and ability to succeed in feats of strength and dexterity, uncommon skills for a wizard, but a pool of talents nevertheless respected. Othian was grinning ear to ear as the white on his robes likewise darkened and shifted in hue, as if a pool of red ink had been spilled upon the top and wicked its way across their length. Next up came Westold, a favorite of the alchemy professor, Dr. Curdle. You catch a glimpse of Dr. Curdle's face in a grimace of satisfaction, and a shudder of dislike races through you. It's no coincidence that alchemy has been your poorest scoring class by far, and you strongly feel the professor is entirely to blame. He seemed to take a clear and immediate dislike to you, singling you out for question, as early in your first year that, even now as a graduating senior, you would have been hard-pressed to answer correctly. His scrutiny and pressure did not seem to ease until the first parental visitation, when your godmothers arrived at the academy. They seemed to immediately recognize Dr. Curdle and mentioned that he had similarly been an unpleasant boy when they had been in school together, constantly bothering your godmothers and your father, whenever Kurtle wasn't down in the catacombs cooking up some new and likely borderline legal alchemical concoction. But for now, your thoughts went to Wessold, the pale and sickly young man who you had become, if not friends, at least decent acquaintances with. He was quiet his first few years, shy and withdrawn, something you did not fully understand until you once caught a glimpse of him changing clothes in the House Prism common room you both shared. The scars beneath his clothes were quickly concealed again, and you spoke no more of it, something that he seemed to wordlessly but deeply appreciate, but it was still a clear sign of a very troubled upbringing, and you resolved then to be a stronger friend for him moving forward. As he places his hands upon the pedestal as well, there is likewise little doubt in the onlookers, yourself included, as to what color he will come into his power as. And sure enough, the banners that snap into existence are a clear and brilliant yellow, the color of Mind Magi. Part 2 soon.